Are you struggling to make gains with calisthenics? Well, you have arrived to the correct place, because in this video, I'm going to show you how you can apply the principle of progressive overload to your calisthenics training and make more gains. The very first thing I want to talk about is actually different variations of exercises you can use to make the exercise harder. Now, specifically with calisthenics, this is essential to your progression. The reason why is because certain exercises will be putting more body weight onto the muscles you want to work. Therefore, it was going to promote more hypertrophy over time. The more weight you can lift with the muscle, the more muscle you're going to obviously build if your strength goes up, right? So using progressive overload with calisthenics would basically look like going from regular knee push-ups here. So you're on your knees doing push-ups like this, to doing normal push-ups, which is going to be pushing a larger percentage of your body weight. Doing the knee push-ups is actually going to allow you to build the strength up to do the normal push-up. And once you're doing normal push-ups, you're going to be building more muscle from doing those normal push-ups because you're pushing a larger percentage of your body weight. Now, you may be asking yourself, there's a little bit of discrepancy between a regular push-up to a knee push-up, because how do you progress from regular push-ups to knee push-ups incrementally? One way you can do this is actually by doing incline push-ups, okay? So basically, you can start off, even if you're a brand new beginner, you can start off doing push-ups on the wall, and you can progress those incline push-ups to steeper and steeper inclines. So then you can progress from the wall to doing them on a chair, then to doing push-ups on a bench, and then eventually you'll be able to have the strength to do full body weight push-ups. Now, if you're somebody who can do push-ups easily like I am, you can progress from regular push-ups to archer push-ups, which basically you're going to have one arm out this way, and you're going to have one arm closer towards your body, and you're basically going to do like an assisted one arm push-up almost. And the further you lean this arm away, which is your support arm, the harder the exercise is going to get. From there, you can do normal one arm push-ups, which are very, very difficult. Or there's actually something else you can do, which is called pseudo planche push-ups. Now, you have to understand in calisthenics, leverages matter very, very much. If I'm doing push-ups from my chest here, my center of gravity is more towards my hips. Like right around this area is where my center of gravity is going to be at. If I'm doing push-ups here, I'm obviously not pushing the weight from my center of gravity where all my weight is like pulling down from, right? Basically, if you take your hands from your chest, move them down towards your hips, you're now pushing a larger percentage of your body weight, and it's way more difficult. Some key things to keep in mind for this pseudo planche push-up is you want to actually make sure you're leaning forward the whole time. That way your hands are always in that position where your hips are at, and you're pushing all the body weight throughout the full range of motion, not just like leaning back and then pushing where your hands are here again. You want to keep your hands down towards your hips the entire time. Go ahead and demonstrate that for you here. Boom, just like this. You're going to do pseudo planche push-ups. Now you're pushing a larger percentage of your body weight. Now, I could go into different progressions for pull-ups, squats, any exercise you can think of. There's probably a progression out there to make it harder. For pull-ups, for example, you can go from doing normal pull-ups to archer pull-ups, which is, again, it's like the archer push-ups, just pulling through more towards one arm, and then eventually hitting one arm pull-ups, which is absolutely insane. If you can do one arm pull-ups, you probably have a pretty decent back. There are other things you can also apply to progressive overload when it comes to variations of exercises. If you look at something such as pike push-ups, for example, if you're looking at pike push-ups right here, boom, you see that? I push up, I'm leaning all my weight onto my palms, and I'm actually a little bit limited by the ground here, if you can notice that, because my head can't actually go past my arms here, and my arms actually stop at like a 45-degree angle here. So like if you're getting this much amount of range of motion in your arm, it's like not really going as far as it could possibly go. So one thing you could use to fix certain exercises like that for specifically developing muscle is parallettes. Now these parallettes here, if I then do my pike push-ups now, boom, I have that extra room to get that extra stretch in the shoulders, the triceps, and a little bit of chest. So this is something you can use to progress as well, get more range of motion, get more gains in those shoulders. Yeah, I highly recommend parallettes. Now you might be asking yourself, doesn't this lean less weight onto your palms now? Yeah, it kind of does. So another thing I use to fix that is I'll actually elevate my feet onto a bench and do elevated pike push-ups with these parallettes to get an extra deep stretch in my shoulders. Now, again, key thing with hike push-ups is you want to make sure you're leaning all the weight onto your palms and you're not leaning them back onto your legs. If you're a complete beginner, it's understandable to do that. But as soon as you're able to develop the strength to lean the weight onto your palms, you probably want to be doing that because that is proper pike push-up form. So I really could go on about calisthenics progressions all day, talking about things such as parallettes. So the one thing I want you to take away here is just constantly look for harder and harder progressions of exercises as you get stronger, because the stronger you get, the more muscle ideally you're gonna put on, as long as your nutrition and recovery are good, obviously. There are a lot of progressions in calisthenics that you can use at any level to make the exercise harder. Even going from these elevated pike push-ups with the parallettes, you can do like wall handstand push-ups, which is obviously the next progression, which I've done before. Now, outside of like obviously using different variations of exercises as progressions and making them harder and harder, you can obviously add more reps and sets. So let's say I do like 5 reps of pull-ups, right? So we're gonna go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's say I hit like failure on the 5th one. I can't get up, right? So you did 5 reps 1 week in your workout. Let's say you do 5 reps in 3 sets. Next week, let's say you're gonna try to hit 7 reps next week on your sets next week. So you'll go from 5 to doing 7 reps of pull-ups, and that will be a way you can use progressive overload with calisthenics. Now, this is a very, very common way to progress with calisthenics. I'll be the first one to tell you it's not exactly perfect, right? I mean, you can continually progress, do more and more reps, or you can actually add more sets. So let's say you're doing those 5 pull-ups, you're doing 2 sets of 5 pull-ups. Well, next week you can do 3 sets of 5 pull-ups, and then the week after that, you can move it up to even 4 sets. Although I wouldn't move it past like 4 sets because that'd be a little getting excessive there, right? So although adding more reps and sets are actually a great way to progress, especially with calisthenics, it's very, very common for people to use that as a way of progression. There are obviously better ways to progress. So like I said, like I began this video out with, I would highly recommend using the variations of exercises. That way you're making the exercise harder in and of itself, and you're not sitting in a gym wasting time just doing endless reps, although that can work. After a certain point of doing more reps and adding more reps into your calisthenics routine, you're gonna dip more into that endurance category rather than the strength building and hypertrophy category. The rep spectrum is a concept that is well accepted. So let's say you're doing like 1 to 5 reps, that's primarily gonna build strength. Obviously, if you use progressive overload and add more weight or even more reps to that, you can build muscle from doing that. However, you're gonna build a lot more strength and muscle. And then if you go up like this, let's say above like 50 reps in calisthenics, which some people do, you will still see muscle building results from that again. However, you'll primarily gain more ability to do more reps rather than build more muscle. So keep that in mind when it comes to adding more reps and sets. There is a point of diminishing returns to that. Now, another thing you can do to actually progress with calisthenics is using a slower pace. If you use a slower tempo, going through the reps slowly, this is actually going to put more load onto your muscles. Now, I wouldn't recommend going excessively slowly unless you absolutely have no other way of progressing. You can obviously do it that way. However, doing something like dips and pull-ups, doing them slower, is a way you can actually get more out of the reps. So doing obviously like 10 reps slowly is going to be a lot harder than doing 10 reps like fast, right, at a faster tempo. I want you to keep in mind that when it comes to building muscle, you don't just want to go through the range of motion. You want to make sure you're using good form, and you also want to make sure that you're squeezing the muscles you're trying to work. So for example, the dips here, what am I trying to work? Trying to work my chest, trying to work my triceps and my shoulders. So you want to put tension on those muscles the entire time, and doing it at a slow tempo is actually going to help you squeeze those muscles better. So basically you're contracting your muscles throughout the entire rep here, which is going to allow you to build more muscle over time because you're putting more workload onto the muscles themselves. You're forcing them to hold those certain positions. So that's one way you can actually progress as well, is going through a slow tempo, making sure you're putting tension on the muscle throughout the entire rep, which you should be doing already. If your main goal is to build muscle, you want to make sure you're putting tension on the muscles you're trying to work the entire time. That's the difference between a weightlifter and that's the difference between a bodybuilder. Bodybuilders are trying to flex through the entire motion using the weight, aka your body weight in this case. And weightlifters' main goal is just to lift the weight. Both have their own benefits, both are different. However, if your primary goal obviously is to look better, to get more muscle, be more aesthetic, you want to make sure you're contracting those muscles through the whole movement. Now, last but certainly not least, I want to talk about failure training. Now, not everybody needs to go through failure training. I do periodically, not every single set, but I do go to failure multiple sets throughout my entire workouts. The reason why is because I want to make sure I'm squeezing the most amount of work I can out of my muscles, and I want to make sure I'm actually getting that stimulus for muscle growth. And the only way you can guarantee that is by going to failure. Even if you use reps in reserve and you just save some reps in reserve when you're working out, eventually you will still have to hit failure to actually test yourself and see if you're actually pushing yourself as hard as you can. See, your body has many ways it can trick itself into doing less work, and your body actually wants to make the movement you're doing easier. When you're trying to build muscle, you want to try to make that movement hard. So like the only thing that's going to make you grow muscle is putting those muscles under intensity, putting those muscles under a stressor that's actually going to make them grow bigger and stronger. Your body's not going to automatically grow muscle just because you go through a motion. You actually have to give it a reason to grow muscle, and that reason is going to be your training stimulus. So just make sure you're training at least close to failure. It doesn't have to be all the way to true muscular failure. I personally train most of my compound movements to technical failure, not like to true muscular failure. And with my isolation exercises such as bicep curls, the bicep is actually a smaller muscle group compared to something like the chest or the shoulders that can actually be trained to true muscular failure and be recovering properly because it's a smaller muscle group. It recovers a little bit quicker than something like your quads would. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out my coaching program link in the description down below. I'm offering weekly downloadable PDFs as well as a video explaining those PDFs to you of a push-pull legs workout routine. So if that's something you're interested in and you want coaching and you want accountability from me, go ahead and check that out, link in the description down below.